Welcome to the Programming Lions podcast. Savanah Hernandez is with us. She's a reporter and political commentator known for her tenacious and viral journalism. Her works cover major political and cultural events across America, including the border crisis, 2020 BLM, Antifa riots, and the sexual exploitation of children. With over 20 million views across various platforms, Savanah's impactful reporting has garnered her appearances on Fox News, Newsmax, One American News, just to name a few. And now she's with us on the Programming Lions podcast. So let's check it out. So we have Savanah Hernandez with us on the show today. Savanah, you are a Turning Point contributor, a Frontline reporter. You've been on Fox, Newsmax, all kinds of news stations. So a lot of experience. We want to tap into that, and we want to talk a little bit about immigration. But without further ado, let's get into some questions.
All right. So first question for you is, how did you get into political commentary, and what do you like about it?
I got into political commentary because during the first presidential election, or I guess first administration of Donald Trump, a lot of people really hated him, and I didn't really have political leanings, and I wanted to go figure out why. So I would go do these man on the street videos and ask Trump protesters why they didn't like them, or why they didn't like him. Sorry, boys, it's early in the morning for all of us.
I know.
Like, none of us could talk today.
Yeah.
Basically, nobody could tell me why they didn't like him, and further, they were very angry, and they were very aggressive, and sometimes even violent when I would, ask them questions. And so it kind of just opened my eyes to the fact that the population was being brainwashed with a lot of propaganda by the media. So it made me want to get involved. It made me want to tell the truth. During 2020, I covered the BLM riots, and let's not forget that CNN called those fiery but mostly peaceful. They were not peaceful at all. So I started covering that because the media was trying to pretend that looting was okay and that Trump rallies were super spreader COVID events.
I remember those times.
Yeah.
Insane. What is the difference between normal journalism and independent journalism?
Well, I guess if we're talking about mainstream media or independent journalism, the mainstream media is backed by billions of dollars. I think there's about 6 or 7 companies that own every single media that we listen to. And for a long time, they had a monopoly on our information because they were able to really dictate the narrative and what we were allowed to see, think, and feel, quite frankly. But with independent media, with social media, with what we're doing here right now, we were able to, as everyday Americans, use our voice to talk about and push back against the mainstream media narrative. So I would say that's the difference. Is one faction is, I would say, like a billion and millionaire class who wants us to think a certain way, and then the other faction is just regular Americans like you and I. We're actually living through maybe bad politics and don't like it, and kind of bring light and truth to what's really going on.
Do you think, just to follow up on that, do you think that the tides are changing a bit in terms of where people, obviously, I think trust in mainstream media is at an all-time low, or close, and it's been deteriorating over the last decade pretty hard. But you probably have a better understanding of the statistics, but what I've read is people are going more and more to places like Twitter and social media to get their news. Current information.
Absolutely. I mean, I treat X like the morning news. I open it up and I scroll and I see what's going on, and it's a really interesting platform because now we have direct access to some of the biggest world leaders, to some of the biggest CEOs that you otherwise would never run into in real life. You can tweet at them. Sometimes they talk to you directly. I mean, we saw what happened, for example, with the CR bill that Mike Johnson just proposed, right? It was 1,500 pages, and American people were like,
unbelievable.
What is this?
Yeah.
How are we going to read this in 8 days before Christmas? That's ridiculous. And then the American people said, no, we're not going to do this. Historically, they just passed them because the government's very corrupt, boys, as we all know.
Yep.
And
Yes.
And so now everybody got mad online and on social media, and we used our voices to be able to get that bill cut to, I would think, 1/10 of what it was, probably even smaller than that. I'm bad at math, that's why I'm in journalism. But, that's, I think, the importance of social media now, and like you said, a huge portion of the population now getting their news there.
That's a
Also
great
bad at
example,
math.
and we talked about that bill, and I was explaining it to you guys how it's a 1,500 page bill, and
think it would like higher the amount that they've been paid, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was giving them pay raises. It was saying that we have to call criminals justice-involved individuals. So there was a lot of changing of the language, right? Which is crazy because now it's like, why are we even talking about how men are not women? It's because that initially started with changing our language, which is like kind of a form of psychological manipulation.
Yeah.
We could get into all
Yeah.
that. Oh my goodness, but
Actually, that is a fun topic, and
Yeah.
so maybe we could tangent just for a moment. But the boys and I have talked about this a bit, where I do feel like the left has been very strategic and good about changing the language very strategically in areas that are important to them. Around like gender now is sort of like it's not really like an existing
spectrum.
term. It's a spectrum. Even the term vaccine during COVID, the definition of it was changed
Yeah.
from immunity to protection. And then when we talk about protection, well, protection is very subjective, right?
Right,
Like how
right.
much protection. And so we've seen a lot of that language changing. And to your point, it is almost like a psyop, right?
it is, absolutely.
Okay. So we're
Yeah.
not crazy. Like,
No, and you
it's
know,
intentional.
It's funny because I had a panel yesterday morning and we were talking about how we are the media now, right? Like we the
Yeah.
people, we the media. And I had mentioned how culture is changing so drastically because we are able to tell the truth and have conversations. And I brought up how raw milk and, COVID, or not even COVID vaccines, but vaccines in general, maybe not as healthy. People can now question this, where
Yeah.
previously we didn't ever had the opportunity to do that. I had a Wall Street Journal reporter come up to me, and out of every single thing we talked about, that's the exact thing he focused in on. And it's just so interesting how our media, instead of questioning big pharma and the people who are responsible for vaccine injuries, because that is a very real thing, instead of trying to dig into that and investigate that a little bit more,
Yep.
for some reason, our media, our politicians are running cover for the people who
Yeah.
are, sometimes the most corrupt and not working in our interest.
Yeah.
Why is that? Is it because those are their advertisers and donors? And
Oh yeah, money, right? And I think too there's a greater aspect of this as well. I recently went viral because I wage war on the TSA. I don't like TSA. I think it's horrible. And this year the government is trying to pass Real ID, right? So we all have our regular IDs, but Real ID is basically going to federalize our state identification. And a lot of people are like Thomas Massey are saying, well, this is going to make it easier for the government to have a big database of all of our information.
Yeah.
It's just going to be easier for them. So on top of that, TSA is also making people do facial recognition every single time they go through the airport.
Correct.
You can opt out of this, but TSA agents love to bully people and make you feel like a criminal if you don't want to do that.
They make
And-
it uncomfortable to opt out of these
Well,
facial
it's-
recognition programs now.
And going into the psychological conditioning, I think it is a societal conditioning, right? Because
Yeah.
they want us to feel like we have to, be involved with this facial recognition, be involved with anything the authority says. But I'm kind of like, break the rules, don't listen to authority. No, always push back a little bit.
Yeah, almost like,
actually-
well, do you have something to hide? That's sort
Yeah.
of what they make you feel like. Well, no,
Or they
but
say your
I just-
face is already getting scanned, and I'm like, okay, well then you don't need an extra picture.
Yeah.
Oh, I heard over there in the other room, these people are saying that Biden might shut down TSA for Christmas and Christmas Eve. Is that actually going to happen?
I mean, I think you're probably talking about the government shutdown, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think so. I doubt it.
So TSA will not be shut down.
I don't know for sure. I don't know for sure. I can't break that exclusive. But if it does get shut down, it will be because the Democrats didn't want to vote to keep the government open.
I think part of the rationale behind it is they know that there's so many people traveling, and
Yeah.
and of all the things they can shut down, that's the one that they would choose to do, sort of as a spite to
They should
not
shut down the
passing
TSA, and then when everything's fine, we'll be
Yeah.
like, hey, we don't need the TSA.
It's funny, we actually asked this question to the boys. We're like, oh, if we take a trip over the holidays, like, how worried would you be if we didn't have to go through TSA? And they weren't super worried, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I know they do some good things, but it's like, it's
Moms or whatever.
Yeah, it's a lot of, it's a lot
It's
of
a
process.
little bit of overreach. Like I said, I think it's kind of a form of societal conditioning to get us all on board with, like I said, facial recognition. I went to Hong Kong and I reported on a protest over there. I wasn't protesting, the people were, because in China, their government actually has facial recognition towers all over, and they have social credit scores. Millions of people were not able to get plane tickets, train tickets, travel outside of China because their social credit score was too low, because they spoke badly about the government, because they jaywalked or they walked their dog without a leash. The government was watching everything, and so, you know, when you see these facial recognition softwares in TSA, it's like this is how it all starts.
Yeah. It's wild. It reminds me, you boys haven't seen this, but there was a Black Mirror episode about this.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh. We don't want that.
I can't watch Black Mirror because I'm like, this is just like a reality TV show. It's depressing.
Yes, it is. It is. It's wild. It's wild.
All right. So, should we get into some immigration? The benefits and drawbacks of immigration for you.
Well, I think that right now it's gotten completely out of hand. I've been covering the illegal immigration crisis specifically for the past 4 or 5 years. I've been to the border, and then I've also followed how it's impacted American cities and towns. So I was in Brunswick, Maine. I've been to Logansport, Indiana, New York City. I'm in Texas. I've been to various small towns that you would never even hear of.
And now you're in Arizona.
Now I'm in Arizona. But these various cities and towns have been impacted by illegal immigration when they otherwise were not dealing with the issue. For example, in Logansport, they had 15,000 Haitians transported to their town. I think that they're a town themselves of about 10 to 12,000. So it was a huge demographic change.
Huge,
wow.
Yes. The uptick in crime started. The culture of the town completely changed. There was a huge uptick in car crashes because right now we have illegal immigrants that are driving on our roads, but they don't speak English. They don't know how to drive on our roads. It's a very big issue. We really have seen a very fundamental change in our country, and we really need to secure the borders because there's a lot of criminals here that should not be here now.
Well, that's Trump's goal, so hopefully that'll happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
So mass deportations.
We've covered immigration a little bit on other casts. We had a gentleman on who is the chair of the Border Security Alliance, and
She still work there?
yeah. And anyway, he lives in Yuma. And he was also telling stories, and maybe you've covered some of this, but that were really sad. He said the cartels largely control the border, who can come in and out, and in a lot of cases they're almost like trafficking people across as workers.
Distorted when they come over here.
They basically send them into worker programs, and then they use them as sort of indentured servants on this side of the border. And so people will come across thinking they're going to go to a better life, but invariably they don't. They're being controlled, and so they're trying to get free, but they actually get more enslaved. And so it's really sad to hear stuff like that. Aside from all the horrifying things that are happening to kids, that's sad to hear. I mean, wild.
I spoke to National Guardsmen, I've spoken to Border Patrol agents who have seen children thrown over the border wall, abandoned in barbed wire.
Yeah.
These are little infants that they're finding because, again, the cartel is only responsible for bringing the kids over the border. And so they'll throw them over, they'll abandon them in the middle of the desert. It's very sad. I saw a little boy. He had a number written on his arm in Sharpie because the cartel abandoned him at the desert, and Border Patrol found him, and it was basically like, call this number. I guess it's a family member, but the entire process is absolutely heartbreaking. You know, we won't get too into the gruesome details, but let's talk a little bit about Tren de Aragua, actually, who was established here in 2023, and they are a violent Venezuelan prison gang that never should have been in the United States to begin with.
Yeah.
So they took over apartment complexes in Aurora, Colorado. I covered this back in September.
Yep.
And the police chief was trying to cover it up. The mayors were trying to cover it up of both Aurora and Denver. And this is the importance of independent media, right? It took independent journalists going on the scene and going and talking to people and other migrants living in those apartments to figure out what was really going on, because there was this huge cover-up campaign by the local government and the police there. It's still a big issue, and I have a police source now who has to feed me information and leaks because they start privatizing reports when these incidents happen because they don't want the public to know the gruesome
Why would they
details.
not want the public to know? Just so they don't get a stain on their reputation? Is there other reasons?
Because they're a sanctuary city. So the city of Aurora is not a sanctuary city, but the city of Denver is.
Yeah.
So basically, they're getting the overflow of all the illegal immigrants that are a direct result of Democrat policy and sanctuary city policy. I think the best example of this is in New York with Mayor Eric Adams.
Yeah.
He wanted to be a sanctuary city, and they now have 250,000 illegal immigrants in New York. And he said, okay, that's too much. This is too crazy. They said initially they were going to spend $1 billion of taxpayer money, by the way. It's us paying that. And that number is now up to $10 billion to feed them, to house them, to put them in hotels, to help them and give them medical
guys,
care.
they need debit
a
cards,
lot.
phones, places to stay, right?
I don't think they need it, but we give it to them for
That's
some
insane.
reason.
It is.
I know. Imagine if you had the opportunity to go break into Italy and then go stay in a free hotel and free food. I would do that.
Yeah, it's a good deal.
It's
really,
yeah. I mean, that there's giving them the perfect reason to come over here.
It's a pretty good deal. Well, as we've covered immigration, some of the backlash we get from, let's say, trolls online or whatever is, well, immigration's good. The country was built on this, and of course, we don't dispute any of that. It's a matter of doing it legally and having a process where people can maybe get through. Let's say we secure the border. Mm-hmm. Are there steps we can take to build a more, let's say, a robust and a faster working process to allow legal immigration to happen more effectively?
Well, I do think that regarding asylum, we need to start being more strict about that.
Yeah.
Because, for example, we still have the CHNV program in which people can seek asylum, and the Biden-Harris administration are still flying in 30,000 people a month on this program. It was found out that there was a lot of fraud with this, and people were using fake social security numbers, maybe because they had a bad record, maybe they're not really giving their true identity. So we definitely need to clean up the asylum and be a lot more strict with that. I think that we need the mass deportations, absolutely. And in terms of the actual legal process, you're right. This is one of the processes that needs to be cleaned up and focused in on. And instead of the government maybe writing up bills about how we need to be spending millions of dollars on studying a shrimp running on a treadmill, that's actually something that the government spent our money on.
You guys remember the Festivus report?
Yes, maybe instead of focusing all our time and energy on that, we focus in on, fixing some of these processes in our country that need help.
Yeah.
Shrimp.
Remember, what was the other?
Shrimp running on a treadmill. It was a tiny treadmill.
That's insane.
They did trans monkeys.
Yeah.
What did they do to the monkey?
They had
They
like a
made them
gender
trans.
transformation.
For monkeys.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my god.
We spent like millions of dollars on trans monkey studies.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, what are these congressmen doing? What are they doing? You know, one of the things that I like to do is go confront them because I'm like, excuse me, what are you doing? What is this?
Yeah.
Why-
Well, it gets wedged into these massive bills, as you know, and so much is just kind of like wedged in there to get people to vote for it, and so that's a real problem. Well, we're hoping Doge or whatever can fix some of this. So we'll see.
I think they have already done a pretty good job with this bill, this first bill. This was the first time we kind of saw Elon and Vivek in action, really uplifting. And I want to make an important point, too, because a lot of people are like, Elon Musk is not elected as the president, so we do have a new unelected bureaucrat running America. No. Elon simply listened to the American people, and he said, okay, let's respond in a way that the American people will be happy about, which I appreciate.
Yeah. Well,
Elon Musk is a pretty cool dude.
He's cool, huh? Yeah. I was actually banned on Twitter for 2 years for my reporting, and it took Elon Musk spending $44 billion for me to be able to get my career back. So thank you, Elon.
wow.
Wait,
So he brought you
44
back.
billion?
He did.
Oh, that's
I
awesome.
was
Wait,
banned for
just
2
for
years.
you? Just for you? 44 billion?
Just for me.
I'm
Thank
just
you,
like-
Elon.
I just wondering, because 44 billion's a lot just to get one
Isn't
person,
that a
right?
huge? No,
Yeah.
there was a lot of
there's a
people
lot
that were banned. Doctors who were speaking out against COVID vaccines, or
Okay,
doctors who were bringing forward different treatments.
Or Trump.
Yeah, Donald Trump, the sitting president of the United States. Maybe he spent it for, Donald Trump. Maybe not.
Yeah.
He freed everybody. He said, here's the town square. Go talk amongst yourselves.
He's like, Elon is like our, I don't know if you're an Atlas Shrugged reader, but he's like our present day John Galt, if you ask me. So, at any rate, we need him. With that, maybe we'll wrap things up. You got a busy schedule today, but we appreciate you coming in, sharing some of your thoughts around reporting, independent reporting, the importance of it, immigration, and all this challenges at the border. So, we're all crossing our fingers for Doge and the new administration to make an impact, but we appreciate what you do and covering and breaking some of these big stories. It's really important to get the
pretty
facts
cool.
out there. So, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah,
for
cool.
coming
Thank
on.
you.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
for having me, boys.
All right, thank you.